CNN is in some pretty major trouble right now. In fact, the entire cable news business isn't in a great place. So let's unpack why CNN and the broader cable news ecosystem might just be fucked.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Founded in 1980 by Turner Broadcasting System, CNN was the first news channel to produce 24-hour rolling news anywhere in the world. Now, given the global proliferation of similar channels, I don't need to tell you that CNN was a bit of a hit. In fact, such a success that 1996 saw Time Warner merge with Turner to acquire CNN and its other brands. Now, the exact lineage of CNN gets a little complicated between then and today, but following the involvement of AOL, the purchase of a bunch of brands, and an attempted buyout from Murdoch, in 2018, communications giant AT&T bought Time Warner, which was then rebranded as Warner Media. It wasn't long after this, though, that AT&T entered talks with Discovery Inc. about spinning Warner Media off and merging it with Discovery. And, well, that's exactly what ended up happening on April 8th last year. CNN, a much-traded business at this point, was in the hands of the newly founded Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, going into this new arrangement, CNN already had a handful of pretty major issues. Firstly, despite being a brand new business, CNN's parent company needed to cut costs badly. Now, it's a little too complicated to get into here, but essentially from the moment it was founded, the new WBD already owed AT&T $43 billion for the purchase of Warner Media, as well as them taking on Discovery's $13.5 billion worth of debt, leaving them with a total gross debt of around $56.5 billion. It wasn't just the parent company with financial issues, though. Following the peaks of the Trump administration, 2020 election, and COVID outbreak, CNN was also seeing their viewership fall, and with it, their revenue. Though ultimately it goes bigger than that. Cable TV is in structural decline. CNN might be struggling, but they're just one element in a much larger cable news problem. And the final problem they had was at the time of the acquisition, CNN had just lost their long-term CEO, Jeff Zucker. Despite being popular within the business, Zucker was ousted after evidence emerged that he'd been in an undisclosed relationship with one of CNN's VPs. So viewership and profits were falling, the new acquirer was already short on cash, and the man at the helm had just been forced to resign. Stepping into the breach, though, was new CNN CEO Christ Licht. Licht was new to CNN, but despite his relatively young age, wasn't new to the world of media. Cutting his teeth at NBC, rising to fame as executive producer of Morning Joe and CBS This Morning, and then more recently working as showrunner for Stephen Colbert, Licht was well known in these circles. However, his entry into CNN wasn't the smoothest. Licht's tenure began essentially as soon as the merger took place, which coincided with the new ownership's decision to can CNN+, the company's much-lauded new streaming service, less than a month after its launch. Now, this was clearly a contentious decision. CNN Plus was supposed to help the network expand, provide new revenue streams, and help bolster the CNN audience. However, Warner Brothers Discovery weren't convinced, instead seeing it as a risky gamble that they didn't have the budget or appetite to afford. And this immediately caused ripples within CNN. Unsurprisingly, killing a project that many people have been working on for years and had just been promoted hard on air isn't just annoying, it's embarrassing. Plus, in the wake of the cancellation, job cuts immediately looked inevitable, which isn't good news for a new CEO either. So Licht entered the job as not the most popular man. But relations between the new leadership and CNN only soured further when Licht got his feet under the desk. In his initial remarks to the company, Licht criticized the network's previous output, arguing that CNN had strayed too far away from their impartial journalistic mission, and argued that they were failing as a result. Also, more symbolically, Licht moved his office from a central spot right by the studios and the bullpen to a secluded area of the 22nd floor, only heightening feelings of division within the company. This wasn't totally unintentional. Licht and WBD CEO David Zaslav had a clear vision for CNN. They wanted to drag the company back towards the center, focusing less on opinion and instead bringing journalism back to the core of the business. Now, that does make some sense. CNN is a pretty serious global news network with tons of global bureaus. Ultimately, they're set up like a serious journalistic enterprise, rather than a more entertainment-based news brand. And while many have long criticized CNN for leaning left, the lean did become a whole lot more pronounced under the Trump administration. Now, we could argue forever over whether CNN covered Trump correctly, and whether they were right to go up against him as hard as they did. But it's pretty objectively true that CNN did tack left during these years, both in coverage and perception. Zaslav and Licht were both worried that this was hurting the brand, with both men wanting to see CNN lowering the temperature of the news environment and appealing to more Republican viewers. Now, that's also a pretty reasonable objective. CNN's name might be semi-synonymous with the left right now. It's possible that the brand could become more recognized for fact than opinion, and there might be a market for it too. While the BBC might not be universally popular in the UK, BBC News is one of the most widely consumed and trusted media brands in the world, something that Zaslav and Licht hoped CNN could rival. They weren't the only ones hoping to move CNN to the right, though. John Malone, Zaslav's mentor and a notable libertarian billionaire, also reportedly encouraged this decision. He even told them that they should follow in Fox News' footsteps, saying, "Fox News, in my opinion, has followed an interesting trajectory of trying to have some actual journalism, embedded in a program schedule of all opinions." To make this vision a reality, Licht began by trying to clean up CNN's reputation with Republicans. Now, this involved firing a bunch of more anti-Trump CNN anchors and reporters, including Brian Stelter, John Hayward, Brianna Kayla, and Jim Acosta. He also went on a very widely discussed trip to Capitol Hill, where he met with GOP officials to try and smooth things out and bring GOP politicians and representatives back to CNN. Licht did insist that he didn't want the far right on CNN, remarking that he wanted debate, not misinformation on the network. But he definitely saw fixing relations with the political right as crucial to bringing CNN back to the center. However, that's not exactly how it was perceived internally. These firings, along with hundreds of others conducted for cost-cutting purposes, weren't taken well by CNN insiders, and many began to think of Licht's trips to Capitol Hill as more of a distasteful apology tour to placate Republicans than a shrewd business play. Even putting aside CNN's relations with politicians and the GOP, things weren't going all that well within the company more generally. Ratings continued to slide under Licht's leadership, with his big bet on Jake Tapper failing to fully pay off, and his morning show project also flailing, leading him to fairly unceremoniously cut the show's lead anchor, Don Lemon. However, these internal and external struggles arguably came to a head during the now infamous Donald Trump town hall. Held on May 10th of this year, CNN's town hall with former President Donald Trump was seemingly the biggest test that Licht had faced so far. After all, this was the culmination of months of hard work. Cultivating GOP support had helped CNN become so in line with the party that their frontrunner for the 2024 presidential election was willing to sit down with the network for a live TV event. Not only that, it also proved CNN's more centrist ideals, willing to let Trump speak and happy to debate topics which might make its core audience uncomfortable. So the town hall was set up to be a huge moment for CNN, and boy was it. Now, those within CNN reportedly saw the writing on the wall well ahead of the event. Many were concerned about the network's lack of preparation, with moderator Caitlin Collins supposedly not even meeting with other CNN anchors who'd previously tackled Trump one-on-one. Others feared that the network wasn't going to be able to fully handle Trump's misinformation, fearing that it could end up being little more than a Trump campaign ad. Worries intensified when rumors circulated that Licht had selected an audience that would be much further to the right than a standard town hall. worrying that this would lead to a raucous, unproductive, and rally-like atmosphere. And if you watch the event, you don't need me to tell you that that's almost exactly what happened. Unsurprisingly, this further frustrated CNN staffers, who increasingly felt that their new leaders weren't only publicly critical of the network's past, but also had no better ideas of their own. Tensions then reached fever pitch when it was rumored that one of Licht's team made the CNN editorial team remove the word sexual abuse from a chyron before the event, allegedly to keep Trump and his team happy and stop him from walking. And it wasn't just insiders. Viewers were also upset. CNN's regular, more left-leaning viewership bemoaned the network giving Trump a platform and failing to hold him account, while those on the right saw Collins's question as too hostile and failed to see that CNN were attempting to become more neutral. This anger all came to a head following the publication of The Atlantic's long piece about CNN under Licht's leadership. And this wasn't an unexpected piece either. Licht had cooperated with The Atlantic's writer, Tim Alberta, for months. But when it landed, it caused even more of a commotion. Now, I'm not going to regurgitate what the Atlantic piece said, but essentially it ran through Licht's myriad personal, political, and business failings throughout the first year of his tenure at CNN, including many of the issues that we've already discussed in this video. Now, a fair bit of this wasn't actually new information, but it did serve as a definitive and damning document, highlighting the myriad failings under his leadership. However, Licht responded resolutely, insisting that this was only the beginning of the journey, and that, thanks to Zaslav's unfailing backing, he'd still be able to execute on his plan. However, he did apologize for distracting from CNN's journalism and said that he regretted making himself the center of the story. Regardless, this unbreakable bond between Licht and Zaslav proved to be weaker than Licht hoped, because just days later, it was reported that Licht had been let go. The thing is, though, that the overall mission of this turnaround for CNN isn't all that wild. Licht had a number of major missteps for sure, but moving CNN towards the center and focusing more on reporting and journalism doesn't sound like a totally crazy idea. They're right that if everyone is always at an 11, it's very difficult to actually find the real importance of any news story. So dialing things back might be the right decision. In fact, this might still be a mission that Zaslav and right-wing billionaire Malone still believe in. It could well be that this is still a good idea, one that only failed due to poor execution. However, the very fact that Licht failed so quickly means that we still don't really know whether this can work. We do know for sure that Licht had an incredibly difficult task in front of him, but we don't know if he failed because the task was simply impossible, or if he failed because he did such a bad job of handling the transition. As such, we don't really know if Licht's replacements, a team including COO David Levy, Amy Entelis, Virginia Moosley, and Eric Sherling, might be able to take a better go at it. But their success certainly isn't guaranteed. The real problem here is that CNN is a big, expensive cable news giant. Not only that, it's a declining force in a shrinking market, as more and more people cut the cord or choose to consume their news elsewhere. This cord-cutting issue is hard to underestimate too, and will have ripple effects well beyond just CNN. In 2016, when cable news networks were high on the profits of Trumpian outrage, some 70% of households had cable subscriptions. Today, that's just 40%. And it's not likely to slow down anytime soon either, with the first quarter of this year seeing 7% of cable subscribers cancelling, some 2.3 million customers. Now, this is clearly difficult for cable news across the board, well beyond just CNN, and it hurts them for two huge reasons. It hurts their profit, and it damages their influence. The reason that cable news is such a profitable business in the first place is because of the economics of cable. In 2022, cable news companies scooped up $2.6 billion in advertising revenue, which is good. But what's great is the just over $4 billion that they were paid by cable companies. That's right, every cable subscriber is paying their cable provider, who in turn passes some of that money onto TV channels, like the news companies, regardless of whether the actual individual viewer tunes into them or not. In fact, this model is so lucrative that it earns them more money than those suspect ads with the very fast voiceover at the end. If you're suffering from loss of audience-itis, then you should seek advice from your doctor. Loss of audience-itis is a serious condition that can lead to rapid drops in revenue, mass redundancies, and your audience rapidly just becoming old people who can't work out how to sign up to Netflix. It's not just this massively lucrative business model that's ending either. It's also the influence they once enjoyed over politics. That's because alongside this declining cable audience more generally, these people are also increasingly less interested in cable news more specifically, especially CNN. Remember that contentious CNN town hall from a moment ago? Despite all the blowback and chaos surrounding it, that attracted only 3.3 million viewers. That's about a third fewer people than those who tuned in to Celebrity Wheel of Fortune that same evening. Now, CNN did hope that their move to digital, in the form of CNN Plus, could solve this issue by bringing in a much-needed source of revenue and helping them maintain relevance in people's habits and lives. But after WBD canned the project, hope has become a little harder to find, with some especially bemoaning the fact that the new leadership team doesn't even contain anyone responsible for or with experience of the digital sector, leading some to wonder why Zaslav has put a bunch of people in charge whose only expertise is in the dying medium. This is an issue that other news channels face too, though, and if we're being honest, even if they are able to successfully move to online news, that's not all that safe either. People might be pushing towards digital, but making money online is considerably more difficult, as the recently defunct BuzzFeed News and massively ailing Vice News can attest to. Even the giants like Fox aren't safe of all of this. They might have the eyeballs right now, but people are tuning out of cable fast. Remember, when the economics are broken down like this, even if older viewers do keep tuning in and thus advertising dollars remain stable, if younger and even middle-aged people tune out of cable altogether, then the size of that license fee pie begins to shrink. Fox might have a strong brand and a loyal fan base, but even for them, the task of moving away from cable could prove challenging. They do already have their Fox Nation streaming service, but at $6 a month and with a reported 1.5 million subscribers, that's still making less than 10% of the $3 billion that Fox News collected from cable providers and advertisers last year. And that's Fox, who arguably start from a much stronger place than CNN does. Ultimately, that leaves cable news trying to navigate this difficult switch away from cable, attempting to maintain audience attention in an increasingly hectic and difficult to monetize environment. Not only that, if CNN really do want to focus around more journalistic principles and neutrality, then they're playing this game on hard mode with no outrage clicks to rely on. Responding to the town hall scandal, CNN anchor Anderson Cooper asked his audience, "Do you think that staying in your silo and only listening to people you agree with is going to make that person go away?" The week following saw CNN's worst ratings in 8 years, so it seems that the audience responded loud and clear. It appears then that there might not be the appetite for independent news that Zaslav had hoped for. And with ratings and profits dropping across the industry, his common retort of ratings be damned might not hold up forever. It doesn't have to be that way though. We here at TLDR News do believe in truly independent and apolitical news. We have a whole network of channels covering everything from business, right here, to geopolitics, the war in Ukraine, and more. All of our coverage is as neutral as we can make it, and as we have no investors or outside owners, we're totally independent to do so. If you want to support that kind of journalism and get exclusive content from us, then the best thing you can do is sign up to Nebula. The best news is that Nebula is less than £2 a month and provides you with ad-free and exclusive videos from TLDR and a whole ton of other incredible content creators like Johnny Harris, Real Life Law, and Legal Eagle. Check it out by clicking the link in the description and make sure you use our link so that they know you came from us.